to 5,000 delegates of the United Democratic Alliance Party, it is a historic moment because this is a party that a year ago was not the party we have today. It is the effort, the commitment, and the hard work of many people in Kenya. Today, the United Democratic Alliance Party is the largest party in the Republic of Kenya. In a very special way, I want to thank many leaders, senators, governors, and members of parliament who worked with me tirelessly and with a lot of courage and commitment to put together this party that today has over 7 million members. The effort to make this party what it is today is not a personal effort of just the leaders. Many hustlers in different parts of Kenya, people who are engaged in all businesses, have registered, have supported the registration, they have financed the registration, they have facilitated the registration, and I want to tell each and every one of them today a very big thank you for making UDA what it is today. This party has come to be the party of the hustler nation in Kenya. This is the party. This is the party where you will not be asked about the name of your father. This is the party you will not be asked to give your bank account. This is the party for every Kenyan from every walk of life. And I want to say, I am a very proud Kenyan today that you have bestowed upon me the responsibility to be the party leader of this great movement. Here today, in person as well as in spirit, including the millions of Kenyans following this event on radio, on television, and online through various platforms. I am grateful for your support, sacrifices, and the time you have taken to congregate at this culmination of a most eventful journey in our lives. I do not take your support and your time and your interest for granted. And as always, I welcome you to walk with us on this road until we knock on the gates of our glorious tomorrow. I thank our party delegates for the work they have done in guiding the hustler nation through a transparent nomination process, and for their consideration in bestowing upon me the immense responsibility of representing the United Democratic Alliance in the forthcoming presidential elections. I am profoundly humbled and immeasurably honored, and I accept your nomination to be the United Democratic Alliance candidate in this year's presidential election. I accept your nomination to be the United Democratic Alliance party candidate in this year's presidential election with gratitude to the Almighty God, recognition of the significance of this moment, and an acknowledgement of the work remaining and the road ahead to that day that we all look forward to. I will live up to your trust. I shall do my very best to exceed your expectations, and I shall neither stop, nor pause, nor slow down, nor hesitate until what you have asked of me is delivered. Let us take this moment to appreciate and salute those who participated in this exercise. Tracy Wanjiru, a courageous lady still in university, resolved to transcend all the intersecting setbacks and barriers to her aspiration to offer leadership and to make her voice heard. Jeffnel Nyakwama also rose up to meet this hustler moment by emphatically saying and demonstrating that the youth of this country have a place in leadership at every level. These young Kenyans fill my heart with joy and hope. In them, I see myself back in the old days, animated by a vision for change and itching to have a go at leadership. In them also, I see a hopeful future in a country where youth, wealth, name, circumstances of birth, ethnicity, gender, and disability are not considerations nor obstacles to accessing opportunities or realizing aspirations. As you are perfectly valid and good to go. You did not wait to be invited to the leadership conversation. Sometimes the invitations never come. You took your chances, entered the room, and sat at the table. Please keep talking, working, and growing together. I thank the United Democratic Alliance for extending us all opportunities to contest leadership positions without discrimination. Let us always strive to live up to our fundamental ethos of uniting our nation through the inclusive and participatory quest for opportunities for everybody. I am aware that this time round there are thousands of young people giving everything to our movement: resources, time, strength, ideas, and moral support. I know that many youth have come forward to stand as candidates, and yet many others are mobilizing, sensitizing, and participating in other meaningful ways. The Hustler Nation is a young nation. The voice as well as the aspiration of Kenya's young people form an essential pillar of our movement. I therefore want to register my gratitude and appreciation and assure you of my commitment to open up opportunities for young people to thrive and drive the progress of our nation. For me, This moment has been long in coming. I have been engaged in political leadership and associated activities since my university days. Obviously, I did not have the opportunity in those days to seek presidential nomination. But I rose from the bottom of the party pyramid, working my way up until I entered party leadership and eventually became a member of the National Assembly at the age of 31. I was an assistant minister at the age of 33 and a cabinet minister at the age of 36 and an opposition MP at the age of 37. And that has sort of formed the basic rhythm of my career ever since. In that time, I have learned a lot, made mistakes, achieved successes, and refined my leadership philosophy and vision for this country. I have learned that leadership failures can cost the country tremendous opportunity and inflict irreparable harm on those many people who depend on us. I have learned that the biggest mistake a government or a party can make is to fail the inclusion test. My original political intuition that governance is all about the people and that development can only be sustainable if programs are designed on the people's terms. I have learned that continuous engagement with the people is indispensable to effective governance and that leadership works to defeat and went all out to support the party and its candidate then. I believe we made a good account of ourselves. My second bid for a presidential nomination was in 2013. This was again deferred as my party subsequently resolved to merge with another party. In the interest of coalition building and broader strategic interests, I divided my bid and once again gave my all in successfully delivering the presidency and a wholesome parliamentary majority. Today, I know without any shadow of doubt that the time has come to represent the hustler nation. The time has come to go all the way, the place of the hustler nation. Let the message get out from this very moment and from this place that I am ready, that I will do everything and my best at that, and most of all, that I am determined to give you a campaign you will be proud of, and to win. And to win for our party, our coalition, and for the people of Kenya. Let the word reach out to our friends as well as our rivals that we are prepared and we are inspired to do all we can to go to every place and to work with everyone to open the doors of inclusion, opportunity, and enterprise in order to move Kenya to the higher level. After all, this is what hustlers do every day. Let me state a fairly obvious fact. I am the first elected and serving Deputy President of Kenya. It has been the honor of my life to be elected to this position, and I will forever remain profusely thankful to my friend, President Uhuru Kenyatta, for a successful working partnership in 3 elections. I have discharged my duties faithfully, and there is not a single task that the President assigned me which I did not execute in full. The Jubilee coalition we formed a decade ago was formed through a covenant to eliminate the politics of hate, division, and ethnicity. Political competition organized around ethnic division is toxic, yet many politicians accept this to be the essence of democracy. Our covenant formed the foundation of a new approach, issue-based politics, institutionalized through national political parties. We succeeded in demonstrating that democracy does not go hand in hand with chaos, confusion, or instability. We have shown that democracy does not express itself through discrimination, exclusion, division, suspicion, or conflict. In government, we focused on delivering those projects and programs that would enable the state meet the people at their point of need. Therefore, we swiftly transformed the country through unprecedented investments in infrastructure as the springboard to effective, efficient, and sustainable service delivery to all parts of Kenya. As a result, we built a new, modern, 700-kilometer long standard gauge railway, constructed 10,000 kilometers of new tarmac, and connected 6 million people to electricity. We also set up 150 technical training colleges. The next phase of our transformation was going to be the Big Four agenda, which would leverage these foundational undertakings to ensure that the economic and social rights of Kenyans would be actualized by creating jobs for millions of young people out of school, out of college, and out of our universities. It would also transform agriculture to increase food production and to lower the cost of living and increase money in the pockets of millions of farmers. Big Four would also radically change our delivery of healthcare by rolling out a comprehensive universal health program. This would complete the task of transforming Kenya that we had been assigned in 2013. From 2017, however, the party backpedaled on its foundational commitments, including the founding covenant. The party rejected national, inclusive, issue-based, transformative leadership and embraced parochial, ethnic, divisive, and retrogressive politics. It defaulted to tribe as the organizing variable of our politics and governance. It privatized governance and weaponized public policy and institutions. It pursued personal politics of congregating an entitled few to express their individual wishes as community interests and translate their private consensus as national policy. In our first term, we made exceptional progress in setting the stage for national transformation. In our second term, we witnessed accelerated regression into the tyranny, personality cult politics, and the weaponization of public offices to intimidate, harass, and persecute Kenyans perceived not to worship those in power. Many large enterprises were destroyed. Many business owners harassed. Many leaders subjected to humiliation, intimidation, blackmail, because their only crime was holding contrary opinions to those holding the levers of state power. A new frame of national unity was engineered in undemocratic and in terms which rationalized grounding and swallowing the whole opposition and the vandalization of the Constitution to accommodate corrupt and dangerous ethnic arrangements. At the same time, the Big Four agenda was abandoned, pushed into the back burner, as execution of its flagship projects was left at the mercy of forces of emergent state capture. Those who remained loyal to our founding vision were shunned, hounded, threatened, and then persecuted. This is how we lost 4 years that would have gifted us with a brilliant blossoming of a beautiful dream which inspired millions of Kenyans in 2013. To his credit, my friend the President did inform me that he needed space to work on his personal legacy as the fourth president. I obliged, and this led to my eventual retreat to the margins of a government that I had participated in forming. The past 4 years have provided me special moments to be able to engage consistently with ordinary people. As Deputy President, I have worked directly with Wananchi, going to meet them in their villages, their markets, their farms, and their places of work, and to have practiced the leadership of listening more and speaking less. All through my political journey, I have believed in walking with the people, listening to them, and doing my best to do what they want, not what I think will be a monument to my own achievements. I have learned that our plush, comfortable, secure offices are inaccessible to the majority of the people who need them the most. As a leader, this is a huge setback because it costs us the opportunity to be useful and effective. These engagements taught me a lot about things I thought I knew. Most importantly, they reminded me the most important question of all: what does the government do, and for whom does it work, and how therefore should it work? I was appalled by the intensity of contempt many have for ordinary people and their rejection of any suggestion that their voice matters. I remain sorrowful over the hatred in the language that proudly despises the poor, the struggling, the hurting, the lonely, and the abandoned. Many of us have felt the stinging lash of this contempt, and we all know where it comes from. Behind the shameless deception that national unity is the coalescing of a few leaders to organize their selfish interests in an implacable sense of exclusive entitlement to the privileges associated with state power. This entitlement is the basis for the formulation of a cynical agenda to capture the state and disenfranchise ordinary people for good. That is why we have witnessed the criminalization of enterprise, the marginalization of livelihoods, and many parts form part and parcel of this contemptuous exclusion. We in the Hustler Nation believe that the measure of any society lies in how it treats its weakest and vulnerable members. We work from the bottom up because if we take care of the bottom, we take care of everybody. We want Kenyans to have opportunity to hustle from the bottom up. The top, therefore, must be understood to be everyone's aspiration, objective, and ideal destination. It is not bottom versus up. It is bottom up. It is not bottom versus up. It is bottom up. I commit, therefore, to live up to the original covenant of championing the establishment of everlasting peace, unity, and opportunity to prosper in our country. I make this commitment on the understanding that sustainable unity can only be achieved through meaningful political and economic inclusion. The evidence of inclusion is respect for dignity of livelihoods and the creation of space for every vocation, every skill, every profession and talent to flourish and yield a bountiful harvest of prosperity for all our people. At the same time, I reject the suggestion that a united country is one that has no political competition or opposition. Rather, I view the foundation of an inclusive Kenya as one governed by an effective democratic government with robust checks and balances, overseen by a vigilant and responsible opposition and a strong civil society movement. I call your attention to the fact that over the past 4 years, the purchase, compromise, and eventual liquidation of the opposition and legitimate political competition set the stage for an effective state capture. I must therefore specifically undertake that under our administration, we shall boldly and firmly confront and dismantle the now pervasive conflict of interest that has rapidly evolved into state capture through corrupt political and economic arrangements. Public policy must not be customized to benefit the private and personal interests of a select few. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to conclude my remarks by framing the picture. What are we up against? What is the 9th of August about? We must be very clear in our minds why your vote counts on the 9th of August. On the 9th of August, there will be a competition of ideas. There will be a competition of sides. We are on one side, our competitors are on the other side. Let me say this for clarity, so that Kenyans go to the polls on the 9th of August, understanding on the ballot on the 9th of August, the great people of the Republic of Kenya, will be two groups. One who believe that the way to the future of our country, that the way to the future of our nation is by changing the economy of our nation. We are seated here. We are assembled here as the United Democratic Party Congress with our friends from ANC and Ford Kenya and Tujibebe and Savina and TSP and CCK and CCM and all the other parties, united by one thing, our belief that the future of our nation is predicated on changing the economy of our nation. While our competitors believe that it is through the changing of the constitution to create positions for a select few will treat our problem of exclusion, on our side we believe that we need to change the constitution to create opportunity, create jobs, create opportunities for millions of young people out of school, out of college, out of our universities, that therein lies the solution to the inclusivity question in the Republic of Kenya. We are very clear that we had this plan in 2017. Unfortunately, the forces who are against the people of Kenya, who do not want to share opportunity, who believe that Kenya is their privilege, who believe they own this nation, they sabotage the Big Four plan because they did not want the young people of our nation to get the opportunity to work and to get the opportunity to do business. I want to say with clarity and certainty that if we had not lost 4 years chasing a mirage, if we had taken time to implement the Big Four plan, Kenya would be different from what we have today. We wouldn't be having millions of young people languishing without jobs. While our competitors believe that they will go to the polls so that they can get the opportunity to change the constitution so that a few people can share power, we are telling them we will go to the polls to elect leadership that is going to create opportunities for empowerment, not sharing power, for the empowerment of millions of citizens of our republic. We want to remind our competitors that 10 million Kenyans today are in a lottery because they have no defined jobs, they have no defined business, they have no access to credit, they have no place to do business, there is no law to protect their enterprises. And we are saying that the opportunity that we have as the people of Kenya is not to change the constitution to create positions and share power among few people. The opportunity we have in Kenya is to create the opportunity for the empowerment of millions of citizens through jobs, through opportunities to work in their enterprises, in their businesses, and to make sure that our economy works for all Kenyans. Our competitors believe that this nation should be about a few people who will be telling them this country is not just about leaders. This country is about 50 million Kenyans. And because it's about 50 million Kenyans, we will not accept to go the journey. They have told us they will bring back the BBI monster because they want to create an imperial presidency. They want a president who controls the judiciary using the ombudsman. They want a president who controls the legislature using appointments. They want a president who does what he wants or what she wants merely because she has power or he has power or they have influence or they have money. We are telling them that this country is about 50 million Kenyans, and we will not accept to go back to the dark days of an imperial president. We are marching forward to a Kenya of shared prosperity by 50 million Kenyans. Our competitors believe that this country belongs to those in power. They believe in impunity. They believe in monopolies. They believe in cartels. We want to tell them we believe in the rule of law. They have weaponized state institutions. They have weaponized the DCI. They have weaponized the EACC. They have weaponized the KRA to run political errands, to dismantle businesses that belong to people who do not worship them. And I want to tell them, this country will change. On our first day, we will free the DCI. We will free the KRA from state capture. We will make sure Thank you very much. I want to say thank you very much. They have weaponized the DCI, the EACC and the KRA to run political errands. We will professionalize the DCI's office and the KRA for them to discharge their constitutional and legal duty. On the first day, we will appoint an accounting officer for the IG and the DCI, so that going forward, the DCI and the IG will have financial independence and they will never again depend on the office of the president for them to discharge their responsibility. as they weaponize the KRA, we will do the complete opposite. We will professionalize the KRA, digitize the KRA, and make sure that it collects all the taxes professionally. And the 60% of the taxes that are not collected as VAT, we will make sure that we will create the mechanism, the digital platform, so that we can collect taxes and we don't have to fight Kenyan enterprises and destroy people's businesses. Thank you very much. Our competitors have proposed that they want to change the constitution so that they can make the judiciary to be subservient and to be accountable and to be answerable to the executive. We want to tell our competitors we will do the complete opposite. On our first day, we will operationalize the judiciary fund so that we can free the judiciary, give them financial independence so that they can discharge their responsibility of sorting out disputes, making sure that criminals are put behind bars, and making sure the corrupt find their place in jail, by making sure that they have the independence to discharge their responsibility without the current encumbrances imposed on them by resources that are not being released, because there is a deliberate move to ensure that the judiciary fund has not been operationalized, yet it has been in our laws for the last 10 years. We believe in an independent judiciary. We want the judiciary to discharge their mandate, independent of the executive. We want the judiciary to provide its oversight role over the other arms of government. We want the judiciary that will stand tall and make sure that they discharge their responsibility without encumbrances of matters to do with financial dependence on other arms of government. We want a judiciary that will be truly independent, that does not receive telephone calls from the executive for them to write judgments. We want a judiciary that is truly independent. Good people, agriculture will be on the ballot in this election. Our competitors are the masters of monopolies. They are the agents of conflict of interest. They are the agents of state capture. And we must free this country and our agriculture from cartels and brokers. We are telling our competitors with conflict of interest, we will deal firmly and eliminate brokers and cartels and monopolies that have taken hostage our agricultural sector. And we will make sure that every farmer has access to quality seeds, has access to subsidized fertilizer. Our competitors are telling us that it is okay to have debt. Our competitors are telling us every country has debt. Yes, we agree every country has debt. But good people, we can do better. We can think better to be able to grow our own revenues. And we must not be slaves of debt from any place or any country. Debt must be the last resort. We must grow our economy. We must empower our enterprises. We must create opportunity in agriculture so that we can grow our tax base. Get as many Kenyans as possible to pay their taxes so that we can run the affairs of our country on the basis of the revenue that we collect. President Mwai Kibaki taught us that it is possible for us to grow our tax revenues. He took over when tax revenues were at 200 billion. He left when we were collecting more than $1 trillion. Our tax collection has stagnated because of conflict of interest. Our tax revenues are stagnated because we do not have a concrete plan. We are saying our movement will create a concrete plan that will expand our taxes so that we can double our tax revenues and reduce on borrowing and debts that can cripple our country. It is tragic that the only thing that I can remember on matters to do with the economy that the handshake has done is to borrow 7 trillion in the last 5 years. It is a tragedy that we must investigate. Good people, we are at a historic moment. We have to make our choices carefully on the 9th of August, because what is on the ballot is either Kenya moving forward into prosperity or Kenya regressing into tyranny and poverty. The choice is as clear as day is from the night. Let me conclude my remarks by saying we will create a comprehensive environment for Kenyans to save, a comprehensive environment for us to grow our own savings. Many countries have their savings in the region of 30 to 40% of GDP. It is only in Kenya that our savings as a percentage of GDP is around 7%. And it is because we think debt is the easier route. I want to say savings is the better route. And that is what we must go. That's what we must do. So, my good people of Kenya, let me say this contest has been defined. Kenyans know what to vote for in this election. You will vote for the people who are looking for power, positions, the cartels, the state capture, the conflict of interest, the brokers, or you will vote for the future of our country, the jobs for our young people, opportunities for our business people, opportunities for our farmers, an accountable executive, an accountable judiciary, an accountable government, and a future for everybody. That is what is on the ballot on the 9th of August. Again, let me thank all of you for sparing time to listen to me. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your commitment. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your sacrifice. I want to thank many leaders who have had to suffer and be victims of a weaponized fight against business, a weaponized fight against leaders. I want to thank many leaders who are here, specifically members of parliament who are here. Can I ask members of parliament who are here to stand up from the UDA part? This, I also want to ask senators and governors who are here to stand up. Thank you very much. These men and women have been subjected to blackmail. They have been persecuted. They have been threatened. Many of them have been dragged to court for crimes they never committed. Their crime was only to be my friends. Their crime was only to be members of the Hustler Nation. But I want to thank them. They are made of good metal. They are made of fine gold. And history will judge you guys fairly, that you stood up against tyranny, that you stood up against blackmail. Thank you very much. The weaponization of the DCI, EACC and KRA is not limited to these leaders. It goes to many business enterprises have been crippled and destroyed by a weaponized DCI, EACC and KRA. Today, it is not just the big business. It is not just Humphrey Karaoke's business. It is not Tabitha Karanja and Keroje business. Even the border today are victims of a weaponized fight against people who don't share in the belief of those who hold the levers of power today. And I want to promise them that power is transient and the people of Kenya will overcome. We will not submit to your threats and blackmail. We will not bow to you. We will not worship you. We worship the living God in heaven. We worship no human being. Asanteni sana. Asanteni. Thank you very much. I want to say from this podium, you may have power, you may control the levers of power, but we believe in God the all-powerful. We submit to God the all-powerful. We will respect everybody. We will give respect to whoever respect is due. We will give honor to whoever honor is due. But we will worship only God in heaven. We will worship no human being. I want to thank you very much for listening to me. I accept this nomination with humility. I commit that I will do my very best to make sure that I don't let you down and that I actualize the aspirations and the wishes of come true. Thank you very much. God bless you. Asante. Thank you very much. UDA oye! Arambe! 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 UDA! 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 Allah, asanteni sana. Asanteni sana, mnaweza kuchukua viti zenu. Thank you very much. Mwenyekiti wetu Mheshimiwa Johnson Mudama, katibu wetu wa chama Mama Veronica Maina, officials wote wa chama chetu cha UDA, marafiki zetu, viongozi wa vyama mbalimbali ambao wamekuja kama marafiki kuja kushuhudia sherehe hii yetu ya leo, ndugu wabunge, magavana, maseneta, MCAs na wajumbe wote wa chama cha UDA. Hamjambo? Hamjambo? Bwana Yesu asifiwe. Assalamu alaikum. Hebu munipungie hivi mkono jameni, nione kwa mbali. Asanteni sana. Asanteni sana. In a very special way, this afternoon, that we are gathered here, close to 5,000 delegates of the United Democratic Alliance Party. It is a historic moment because this is a party that a year ago was not the party we have today. It is the effort, the commitment, and the hard work of many people in Kenya. Today, the United Democratic Alliance Party is the largest party in the Republic of Kenya. In a very special way, I want to thank many leaders, senators, governors, and members of parliament who worked with me tirelessly and with a lot of courage and commitment to put together this party that today has over 7 million members. the effort to make this party what it is today is not a personal effort of just the leaders. Many hustlers in different parts of Kenya, people who are engaged in all businesses, have registered, have supported the registration, they have financed the registration, they have facilitated the registration, and I want to tell each and every one of them today a very big thank you for making UDA what it is today. This party has come to be the party of the hustler nation in Kenya. This is the party. This is the party where you will not be asked about the name of your father. This is the party. You will not be asked to give your bank account. This is the party for every Kenyan from every walk of life. And I want to say, I am a very proud Kenyan today that you have bestowed upon me the responsibility to be the party leader of this great movement. Here today, in person as well as in spirit, including the millions of Kenyans following this event on radio, on television, and online through various platforms. I am grateful for your support, sacrifices, and the time you have taken to congregate at this culmination of a most eventful journey in our lives. I do not take your support and your time and your interest for granted. And as always, I welcome you to walk with us on this road until we knock on the gates of our glorious tomorrow. I thank our party delegates for the work they have done in guiding the hustler nation through a transparent nomination process, and for their consideration in bestowing upon me the immense responsibility of representing the United Democratic Alliance in the forthcoming presidential elections. I am profoundly humbled and immeasurably honored, and I accept your nomination to be the United Democratic Alliance candidate in this year's presidential election. I accept your nomination to be the United Democratic Alliance party candidate in this year's presidential election with gratitude to the Almighty God, recognition of the significance of this moment, and an acknowledgement of the work remaining and the road ahead to that day that we all look forward to. I will live up to your trust. I shall do my very best to exceed your expectations, and I shall neither stop, nor pause, nor slow down, nor hesitate until what you have asked of me is delivered. Let us take this moment to appreciate and salute those who participated in this exercise. Tracy Wanjiru, a courageous lady still in university, resolved to transcend all the intersecting setbacks and barriers to her aspiration to offer leadership and to make her voice heard. Jeffnel Nyakwama also rose up to meet this hustler moment by emphatically saying and demonstrating that the youth of this country have a place in leadership at every level. These young Kenyans fill my heart with joy and hope. In them, I see myself back in the old days, animated by a vision for change and itching to have a go at leadership. In them also, I see a hopeful future in a country where youth, wealth, name, circumstances of birth, ethnicity, gender, and disability are not considerations nor obstacles to accessing opportunities or realizing aspirations. As you are perfectly valid and good to go. You did not wait to be invited to the leadership conversation. Sometimes the invitations never come. You took your chances, entered the room, and sat at the table. Please keep talking, working, and growing together. I thank the United Democratic Alliance for extending us all opportunities to contest leadership positions without discrimination. Let us always strive to live up to our fundamental ethos of uniting our nation through the inclusive and participatory quest for opportunities for everybody. I am aware that this time round there are thousands of young people giving everything to our movement: resources, time, strength, ideas, and moral support. I know that many youth have come forward to stand as candidates, and yet many others are mobilizing, sensitizing, and participating in other meaningful ways. The Hustler Nation is a young nation. The voice as well as the aspiration of Kenya's young people form an essential pillar of our movement. I therefore want to register my gratitude and appreciation and assure you of my commitment to open up opportunities for young people to thrive and drive the progress of our nation. For me, this moment has been long in coming. I have been engaged in political leadership and associated activities since my university days. Obviously, I did not have the opportunity in those days to seek presidential nomination. But I rose from the bottom of the party pyramid, working my way up until I entered party leadership and eventually became a member of the National Assembly at the age of 31. I was an assistant minister at the age of 33 and a cabinet minister at the age of 36 and an opposition MP at the age of 37. And that has sort of formed the basic rhythm of my career ever since. In that time, I have learned a lot, made mistakes, achieved successes, and refined my leadership philosophy and vision for this country. I have learned that leadership failures can cost the country tremendous opportunity and inflict irreparable harm on those many people who depend on us. I have learned that the biggest mistake a government or a party can make is to fail the inclusion test. my original political intuition that governance is all about the people and that development can only be sustainable if programs are designed on the people's terms. I have learned that continuous engagement with the people is indispensable to effective governance, and that leadership works and listens more and speaks less. My first bid for a party's nomination to contest the presidency was in 2007, which I did not win, and I conceded defeat and went all out to support the party and its candidate then. I believe we made a good account of ourselves. My second bid for a presidential nomination was in 2013. This was again deferred, as my party subsequently resolved to merge with another party. In the interest of coalition building and broader strategic interests, I divided my bid and once again gave my all in successfully delivering the presidency and a wholesome parliamentary majority. Today, I know without any shadow of doubt that the time has come to represent the hustler nation. The time has come to go all the way, the place of the hustler nation. Let the message get out from this very moment and from this place that I am ready, that I will do everything and my best at that, and most of all, that I am determined to give you a campaign you will be proud of, and to win. And to win for our party, our coalition, and for the people of Kenya. Let the word reach out to our friends as well as our rivals that we are prepared and we are inspired to do all we can to go to every place and to work with everyone to open the doors of inclusion, opportunity, and enterprise in order to move Kenya to the higher level. After all, this is what hustlers do every day. Let me state a fairly obvious fact. I am the first elected and serving Deputy President of Kenya. It has been the honor of my life to be elected to this position, and I will forever remain profusely thankful to my friend, President Uhuru Kenyatta, for a successful working partnership in 3 elections. I have discharged my duties faithfully, and there is not a single task that the President assigned me which I did not execute in full. The Jubilee Coalition we formed a decade ago was formed through a covenant to eliminate the politics of hate, division, and ethnicity. Political competition organized around ethnic division is toxic, yet many politicians accept this to be the essence of democracy. Our covenant formed the foundation of a new approach, issue-based politics, institutionalized through national political parties. We succeeded in demonstrating that democracy does not go hand in hand with chaos, confusion, or instability. We have shown that democracy does not express itself through discrimination, exclusion, division, suspicion, or conflict. In government, we focused on delivering those projects and programs that would enable the state meet the people at their point of need. Therefore, we swiftly transformed the country through unprecedented investments in infrastructure as the springboard to effective, efficient, and sustainable service delivery to all parts of Kenya. As a result, we built a new, modern, 700-kilometer long standard gauge railway, constructed 10,000 kilometers of new tarmac, and connected 6 million people to electricity. We also set up 150 technical training colleges. The next phase of our transformation was going to be the Big Four agenda, which would leverage these foundational undertakings to ensure that the economic and social rights of Kenyans would be actualized by creating jobs for millions of young people out of school, out of college, and out of our universities. It would also transform agriculture to increase food production and to lower the cost of living and increase money in the pockets of millions of farmers. Big Four would also radically change our delivery of healthcare by rolling out a comprehensive universal health program. This would complete the task of transforming Kenya that we had been assigned in 2013. From 2017, however, the party backpedaled on its foundational commitments, including the founding covenant. The party rejected national, inclusive, issue-based transformative leadership and embraced parochial, ethnic, divisive, and retrogressive politics. It defaulted to tribe as the organizing variable of our politics and governance. It privatized governance and weaponized public policy and institutions. It pursued personal politics of congregating an entitled few to express their individual wishes as community interests and translate their private consensus as national policy. In our first term, we made exceptional progress in setting the stage for national transformation. In our second term, we witnessed accelerated regression into the tyranny, personality cult politics, and the weaponization of public offices to intimidate, harass, and persecute Kenyans perceived not to worship those in power. Many large enterprises were destroyed. Many business owners harassed. Many leaders subjected to humiliation, intimidation, blackmail, because their only crime was holding contrary opinions to those holding the levers of state power. A new frame of national unity was engineered in undemocratic and in terms which rationalized grounding and swallowing the whole opposition and the vandalization of the Constitution to accommodate corrupt and dangerous ethnic arrangements. At the same time, the Big Four agenda was abandoned pushed into the back burner as execution of its flagship projects was left at the mercy of forces of emergent state capture. Those who remained loyal to our founding vision were shunned, hounded, threatened, and then persecuted. This is how we lost 4 years that would have gifted us with a brilliant blossoming of a beautiful dream, which in
former student, he is not looking at me, but nevertheless, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I always kid with him because he attended a different campus than where I was teaching. Yeah? But welcome. I also have another, but he wasn't my student. Weta, welcome. Moses Weta is a very interesting man. We have some history with him, which extends beyond Salia, Mudavadi. My colleagues, fellow stakeholders, you know, Sosion, just give me some time to say something. Allow me. Today is a very important day for all of us, for our country, because we are looking and conversing about a very important sector in our society, in our economy, the education sector. The education sector, the former speaker was indicating that education seems to follow the economy. We believe different. It is the education sector, it is education that shapes the route for development in any country. So you see, if you really want to know the rate of development, socio-economic development in any country in the world, you can go and look at the rate of education, transition rates, access to various levels of education, performance, the issues of quality, and so on. And that can inform you on how the economy in that particular country moves. Incidentally, Your Excellency, one of the ways that I like for determining the rate of development of any country is to use the so-called HDI, Human Development Index. And the Human Development Index looks at only 3 critical factors. It looks at health, it looks at the economy of the country and so on, the incomes, but most important, 33% of the rate of how developed any country is anchored on education. So education is a very critical sector in the development of any country. We are very lucky that the aspect of education has been captured in most of our driving policy documents, including our constitution. When you look at the Kenya Constitution and you identify a word, see how often it occurs in the whole constitution. And the more times it occurs, then it gives an indication of how important it is. Education occurs almost in every other page in our constitution. Education occurs in Article, I believe, 43, which states that it's a fundamental right of every Kenyan to access university education. That is every Kenyan. Article 53, every child has a right to education, and actually it is compulsory right. So, Sion, am I right? It is compulsory, yeah? And then I believe 53 says that the youth, young people, should also have access to education. That is what we, our nation, should be doing to ensure that these rights are achieved. That is extremely important. But the one that I love most is very early in the Constitution, known as Article 11, which really says that we are who we are because of our culture. And therefore, the government that we have must undertake to ensure that we promote science, and this is not me, we promote science, we promote history, we promote all the aspects of education, arts, music, and so on, because that is all part of our culture, and that is extremely important. And the government is obligated to ensure that this is done. So when we converse and engage with education, let's just keep in mind that it is extremely
according to the law. Wakili Muriu.
Your Excellency, the Deputy President, Dr. William Ruto, my former student, he is not looking at me, but nevertheless, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I always kid with him because he attended a different campus than where I was teaching, yeah? But welcome. I also have another, but he wasn't my student, Weta. Welcome. Moses Weta is a very interesting man. We have some history with him which extends beyond Salia, Mudavadi. My colleagues, fellow stakeholders, you know, Sosion, just give me some time to say something. Yeah? Allow me. Today is a very important day for all of us, for our country, because we are looking and conversing about a very important sector in our society, in our economy, the education sector. The education sector, the former speaker was indicating that education seems to follow the economy. We believe different. It is the education sector, it is education that shapes the route for development in any country. So you see, if you really want to know the rate of development, socio-economic development in any country in the world, you can go and look at the rate of education, transition rates, access to various levels of education, performance, the issues of quality, and so on. And that can inform you on how the economy in that particular country moves. Incidentally, Your Excellency, one of the ways that I like for determining the rate of development of any country is to use the so-called HDI, Human Development Index. And the Human Development Index looks at only 3 critical factors. It looks at health, it looks at the economy of the country and so on, the incomes, but most important, 33% of the rate of how developed any country is anchored on education. So education is a very critical sector in the development of any country. We are very lucky that the aspect of education has been captured in most of our driving policy documents, including our constitution. When you look at the Kenya Constitution and you identify a word, see how often it occurs in the whole constitution. And the more times it occurs, then it gives an indication of how important it is. Education occurs almost in every other page in our constitution. Education occurs in Article, I believe, 43, which that it's a fundamental right of Kenyan to access university education. That is every Kenyan. Article 53, every child has a right to education, and actually it is compulsory right. So, Sion, am I right? It is compulsory, yeah? And then I believe 53 says that the youth, young people, should also have access to education. That is what we, our nation, should be doing to ensure that these rights are achieved. That is extremely important. But the one that I love most is very early in the Constitution, known as Article 11, which really says that we are who we are because of our culture. And therefore, the government that we have must undertake to ensure that we promote science, and this is not me, we promote science, we promote history, we promote all the aspects of education, arts, music, and so on, because that is all part of our culture, and that is extremely important. And the government is obligated to ensure that this is done. So when we converse and engage with education, let's just keep in mind that it is extremely necessary for us to really understand and to ask ourselves, how is the education sector going to drive and create the future that we need as a country? Obviously, everything has a challenge. And Your Excellency, when you requested a few of us to see if we could look at the education sector, it wasn't that easy. Because as we assessed the education sector, we noticed that there were challenges. Okay? And by the way, the team that did this work, I really must take this opportunity to appreciate all of you. Okay? Kanya, now you at least can settle. You did well. Professor Uhuru, I think, is somewhere. Professor Somes, some of them I think may have arrived. Oh yeah, you are still there. I couldn't see you. How is Eldoret, by the way? Very good. He's a very distinguished engineer from the University of Eldoret. Also used to be the CEO of the Commission for University Education. And way back, if I remember, way back 1999, you were secretary to the commission that was the Koech Commission, is it? That was examining education within Kenya. By the way, there have been a lot of commissions that have been done doing this. Let me just not talk too much, but let me indicate challenges that we noticed. And Your Excellency, I think it's important to share this with you. issue of access is extremely necessary. Issue of transitioning from early childhood to primary, to secondary, to the university. To me, if we want to be a country that will be a major developed country, and we can do that by the end of 5 years that we are approaching, because our HDI can raise very fast if we focus on education. And therefore, to me, education is very important. Transitioning, 100% transitioning is extremely important to ensure that every young person, whether from marginalized communities or from wherever, have access to quality education, I think is extremely important. The second thing is, as people are transitioning, there are obviously challenges. And one of the challenges that, and we discussed in the team, was the question of, we normally allow transitioning to take place depending on performance in examinations. And therefore, sometimes those who don't perform very well have a challenge. We think that we must refocus and say, even if somebody is transiting from secondary school to university, is it necessary that they must have a cutoff point, Professor Some, of a particular grade? Is indeed necessary for us to rethink of alternative criteria, alternative competencies, qualifications, skills that are needed, but they are very essential. I should now these are just general comments. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank all of you for being present here for this engagement. It's extremely important for this country and for all of us as key stakeholders in the education sector. We are now going to have detailed comments and presentations about the Charter from selected professionals. So please forget about what I may have said and listen carefully and attentively to the professionals that are going to handle issues of basic education, university education, TVET, and so on. So may I now stop there and request my colleague to... Yeah, we are all learning. We are here doing education, so it's a learning process. So I have the distinguished honor, I have been advised that before anybody else stands here, the distinguished His Excellency, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, should come and open the discussion, and then we can proceed from there. Please welcome Dr. William Samoei Ruto.
No, it's okay, please, you don't have to stand. Thank you very much, Mwalimu, Professor Munavu, and I want to say that I was a student in Chiromo, where Professor Munavu was our principal of that college. And he can confirm that I was a student. I am equally privileged to stand before my PhD supervisor, Professor Nkanya, who is here. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me take this opportunity on behalf of the KWANZA fraternity to welcome everybody to this discussion. I want to say right from the onset that this is going to be probably the most important discussion going into the future. It's going to be the most important discussion for two reasons. Reason number one is because the greatest enabler of the bottom-up model is education. The second reason why this is probably going to be the most important discussion is because the single most important resource we have as a nation is our human capital. And education is responsible for shaping and sharpening our human capital. In fact, today, the biggest contributor to our GDP in terms of resources that we raise as government is resources that come from our human capital. In fact, the highest foreign exchange earner today in Kenya is our human capital in the diaspora. Diaspora remittance, which is basically our human capital remittance from diaspora, has exceeded coffee, tea, horticulture in terms of the amount of money we raise. And therefore, education, the single most important enabler of our human capital, is the discussion we are having in this auditorium. And that is why it is probably the most important discussion. The third reason why it is the most important discussion is because we have agreed that as a nation, the single most important discussion we are going to have in this election is the economy. And as I have said, the biggest contributor to our economy is our human capital. And the most important enabler of our human capital is education. That is why we isolated education to have a standalone conversation, a standalone symposium, because it is one of the most important sectors that we must shape. To the next level. I say so also authoritatively as a former Minister for Higher Education. I know how working on education can change the destiny of a nation. I know, for example, that reorienting and re-engineering our education has enabled 480,000 students today to be in our TVET institutions, as opposed to about 89,000 in 2013. And that has created a human capital that is more focused, with skills, with competencies, that will help us achieve the targets of Vision 2030 and all the other targets we've set out for ourselves as a nation to achieve. My good teacher, Professor Munavu, has said that this discussion we're going to have here is going to be largely about 3 or 4 factors. One is access. How do we improve access? How do we achieve universal access? Number 2, how do we make sure that our education is relevant so that we can use it to tackle the challenges of our time? The shift to TVET was part of that endeavor to make our education relevant to what we need, the kind of human capital we need to be able to achieve what we are looking for. All our other endeavors as a nation in food security, in health, and in all the other spheres in our economy, the kind of human capital we develop will make it that much more easy to achieve those targets. The third issue is affordability. How affordable is our education? How do we make it that much more affordable? How do we make it that much more affordable so that the majority, as we discuss free primary, free secondary, our tertiary institutions, TVETs, and all the other tertiary institutions, all the way to university, how do we make it? How do we fund it? How do we make sure it's affordable for the majority of the citizens of our country? So these are the issues that we want to have a discussion around. Access, relevance, affordability. These are issues we want to have a conversation about so that we can build a human capital that is going to give us the edge, not only to achieve what we have set out to achieve as a nation, but to make sure that that education is internationally competitive and we can have access to opportunities beyond the boundaries of our nation. So I thought it is important for us to calibrate the kind of discussion we are going to have. And I want to thank the stakeholders that have participated in many meetings that have gone into the meeting we are having here today. As a policy in KWANZA, we decided that we are not going to write a manifesto in some hotel room or in some conference somewhere. We are going to have a robust engagement. We have collected a lot of views from stakeholders in the many economic fora we have had around the country. We've had views from teachers, from managers of schools, from parents, from students on what they think about HELP, Higher Education Loans Board, on what they think about the curriculum we're running, on what they think about CBC. We've collected a lot of information, and that information has been processed through the various education-specific sector meetings that have gone into the journey towards us arriving at this final symposium. So to all of you who have contributed your ideas, you have made suggestions, you have given us ideas, and to thank our technical teams, members, who have committed a lot of time in putting this together voluntarily. Members of WASU, members of KUPET, members of NAT, members of private schools, and many other stakeholders, including our church institutions who are partners in running our education institutions. We have come here finally to have this final conversation, and as Kenya Kwanza, we will be happy to sign a charter with the education sector on agreed parameters on what needs to be done on teachers' shortage, what needs to be done on capitation, what needs to be done on higher education loans board provision, and on all the other areas that we want to engage in as a way of arriving at education being the driver for our economic model, and making sure that bottom-up is enabled by the kind of education that we have. I forgot to mention one last thing, is quality. Accessible, affordable, relevant, and the right quality of education. That's really at the bottom of what we need to discuss, so that we don't get half-baked people at the end of our education chain. We get people with the correct quality education. We are going to have a conversation about competence-based education. I want to say from the onset that the graduation that has taken place from knowledge and exam-based education to now knowledge, competence, skills-based, and value-based education is the right trajectory. So it's very important for us to understand that as Kenya Kwanza, we support the progression from what we had as knowledge and exam-based education only to the new format of knowledge, skills, and competence, as well as value-based education. The conversation we want to have is, we are now 5 years into CBC. UNESCO guidelines gives us the latitude that every 5 years you have to review your education curriculum. And this is the moment. We've had concerns from parents, we've had concerns from teachers, we've concerns from various stakeholders. As Kenya Kwanza, we want to have a robust conversation with the public, with all the stakeholders, so that we can have an education system that where everybody is comfortable, and it leads us to quality, it leads us to relevance, it's also affordable, and it's of good quality. That's really where we want to go. So Ladies and gentlemen, I am truly happy to participate in this conversation. I think it is the most important conversation, as I have said earlier, and this discussion is now open. I know I cannot claim to be a professional. I know there are so many other professionals who can speak to this, but I can also confirm that I have gone to school. So I have an idea of what it should be. So, and I want to thank my teachers who are here and all the other, I also have people I went with to school and many other people. I know there is now huge controversy about degrees and this kind of thing. And I think sorting out our education the way we are doing it will actually remove some of the gray areas that have occasioned the kind of challenges we have today of us not knowing who was in school, who was not. And it will also help us to eliminate cases of people saying they went to school, they have no known classmates, they have no known lecturers, and nobody knows what courses they did. So I think it will help us sort out the whole of that, mess. So welcome, good people, to this very important conversation, and I think we can now take it up from there. Asanteni sana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Now, I will call the first speaker.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremonies, Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellencies, party leaders who are here, the Chair of the Education Committee, colleague educationalists, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It gives me great pleasure to be here today to address this forum. And before I say anything, Your Excellency, allow me just to recognize some of my colleagues who have given me a mandate to chair the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association, and also other sister associations that we collaborate with very much on matters education. With me, I have representatives from KEPSHA, and I know I have the former chairman here of KEPSHA, Mr. Gademia, his team, kindly wave. We also have KESHA officials, our secretary, national secretary, Mr. Kuria, is here. I have the chairman of KWATA, Kenya Women Teachers Association, is here. I have SHAK. SHAK is the Special Schools Heads Association. The former treasurer is here. And apart from that, we also have our unionists here, KUPET and NAT represented. And we have teachers from all over the country. My colleague teachers, please just stand. I know you are there. Just stand. And yeah. So these are the people, Your Excellency, that have allowed me to participate on their behalf on matters education. As I stand here this morning, I would like to share with you and the forum on matters of basic education. Your Excellency, you've articulated it very well. And even the person who, Daktari, who gave us the preamble, really did indicate that education is the key driver. If we want to progress as a country, if we want our economy to be good, then an educated citizen is key. A good education system is very important. And for us to be able to ensure that our students and our citizens are well educated, we must invest a lot in the training. We must invest a lot in quality training of the key driver, the teachers. The people seated behind you, sir, majority are teachers, and they agree with me that the quality of training, how they are empowered, and how they are employed becomes very key. As KWANZA takes over government, it will be important to first think of the gap in the teaching. At the moment, as principals and head teachers of various institutions, we are lacking the number of teachers that are required. I know there are very many out there that are waiting to be employed, but it would be important to first address the very needy, the gap that is there. When we last checked, our shortfall is about 118,000 teachers. This would be very important that immediately they are employed to be able to take care of the 100% transition, to be able to take care as we prepare for junior secondary students that are coming to us, and then eventually ensure that those teachers that are out there waiting to be employed are employed and employed very quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, as we look at the employment of teachers, a good teacher and a teacher that is going to deliver the curriculum the way it is must be happy, must be healthy. It would be important to look at how do we enumerate them. How is their medical cover? Is it able to take care when they fall sick? At the moment, there are challenges because at times when they go for treatment, you are told that this insurance cannot manage 1, 2, 3. So it would be important to look at the health status of our teachers. It is also important to look at the issues to do with their continuous training. A bone of contention that we have today, which I want to present to you to think about it, is the issues of the continuous training through the TPD program. There is now being said that the teachers will have to finance for themselves. That is a bone of contention. I would like to recommend that as we prepare and continuously train them, let this continuous training be borne by the government. So that when the government feels that I need to be retooled, they need to pay and ensure that I'm ready to continue working. The issues to do with safety. We are aware that across the country, some of the areas are now facing a shortfall because of the insecurity in the area. It would be important that the safety of both the learner and the students, the learner and the teachers are addressed so that the teacher feels comfortable, the teacher knows that my responsibility is at this level and that there is somebody else to ensure that I'm safe. It is the responsibility of government to ensure that the security of every citizen is key. The issue of remuneration. I'll address issues to do with the teachers, then move to other areas. The issues of enumeration are very important. A well-resourced, a well-tooled teacher, and finally a well-paid teacher will deliver the curriculum to the level that the government would like to look at it. Our proposal, sir, is that immediately you take over, can you look at allow the stakeholders to further discuss on the CBA? Because the CBA that has been there, the teachers out there call it the maternity CBA. Yes, it is true, when our partners deliver, we also must be available to support them, to ensure that they are strong enough. Then we continue with work. But in addition to that, the teacher will always want to see how much has been increased on my pay. So I want to request that immediately, propose that immediately you take over government, let Teacher Service Commission, our unions, take over and discuss the CBA afresh. And I think this cuts across the entire sector of education, from basic education up to tertiary education. I'm sure as my friends come to share, this will be repeated several times. The issues of facilities in our institutions. When I talk of facilities, I'm not only looking at infrastructure, the classroom alone. That is key. But one big issue that we must look at, and as we look at the sciences, how are we developing the infrastructure in terms of laboratories, the infrastructure in terms of libraries for research, the infrastructure in terms of technology. Because as we move forward, technology, we need to leverage on technology. And the biggest challenge that we have in these areas, Your Excellency, is the internet connectivity. When Corona hit us, we all closed schools and we closed learning. Eventually, we realized that learning must continue, and we started sending lessons to students via phones. So the school was now in the phone. But when they come to school, we tell them don't come with the phones. So it will be important for us to leverage on technology, so that should we face another shock in the education sector, we do not close schools and close learning. Schools can be closed, but learning should be able to continue. It is our proposal that issues on internet connectivity be looked into, so that the tariff or the charges that go with internet connectivity are brought down for purposes of teaching and learning. 100% transition policy by government today is good. This ensures that all our children go to school. But what challenges have we faced with a 100% policy? The biggest challenge has been overstretched facilities on a certain cadre of schools that ends up with so many students because they believe in that cadre of schools there will be quality education. But if you look at data, 70% of our schools in the nation are day schools. And consequently, the largest number of students in our country are found in day schools. The challenge has been that these day schools have not been well facilitated in terms of infrastructure, in terms of staffing, and therefore they end up not having the students that they need. Students now run away to the schools that they feel, or parents, the schools that they feel are well resourced. It is our recommendation that we should invest more in our day schools. Equip them well, resource them, and then staff them so that students and parents can have confidence to take their children to the primary schools, the day schools that are closer to them. Because we are saying, as we move these children to junior secondary, and I happen to have been a member of the task force, one of the recommendations we were saying that junior secondary should be primarily day school. But now, with the crave which the Kenyans have for boarding schools, it means that we may not achieve that unless we invest more in our day schools. So for us to achieve it, our recommendations, let us invest more in our day schools. Your Excellency, the government policy on capitation is good because it ensures that every child has a percentage of money that ensures this child is in school. And as I said, in day schools, it would be almost completely free, apart from boarding schools where the parents have to pay for boarding services. So this 100% policy and the number of students expected to be in those institutions, we still have disparities. And that is what we need to seriously look into to ensure that the policy and capitation is right. And how are we going to do this? We propose, Your Excellency, that when it comes to issues of utilities, and here I'm looking at electricity, water, as I've already mentioned, internet connectivity, and many other utilities that the schools use. Schools are charged for use of electricity at a market price. So you find that a school that is large enough are paying up to about 800,000 per month on electricity. This is a very big chunk. So that even if government is giving capitation, the same government through Kenya Power is receiving this money. And therefore, the schools are left to be challenged. You look at water, the same. You look at sewerage services, we pay very heavily. Our proposal is that could we look at special tariffs for learning institutions? And I'm saying learning institutions because I believe from ECD up to our universities will require this special kind of arrangement. How will it benefit us? One, you may not need to now increase capitation because they are going to be paying less for service provided by institutions of government, Kenya Power, Kenya Water, and all that. When we pay low, then it means the schools, through the capitation government has been given, will be able to have enough money to do other things. And for boarding schools, it will be important to look at how do we cushion these schools with the fluctuating market prices of food items, the grains, maize and beans, sugar. It would be important now, maybe as a policy, that we look at how KCPB and other institutions can come in to sell this commodity to schools at a highly subsidized price. With the large populations that we have, we will buy more. The farmer will have an opportunity to supply to KCPB because there is a ready market in our schools. You will have introduced free feeding programs from ECD and some areas in the ASAL areas, and I believe it will trickle down all the way up to the farmer who is growing this. We want to appreciate, sir, the partners who have come in to support government in ensuring that children go to school through bursaries. I have in mind Equity, KCB, Jomo Kenyatta, very many other organizations, CDFs, individual people coming in to support needy children. As principals, we have noticed that one student can end up benefiting from multiple sponsors. CDF has given this student something. A church organization has given the student something. Maybe the parent was following up with the Equity, and the Equity also sends. So you find this one child benefiting at the expense of a very needy child who has not been reached. So that at the end of maybe a period of 4 years or so, you find a parent coming to tell you that my son has excess fees. And true, the fees is now excess. The next question he says that because it was money for my child and he has now cleared, can you refund? The question has been, whom do I refund? Do I refund the organizations that were sponsoring, or do I refund the parent? And that is why it is important for us to find a way of having a central control system that is robust, that when a Elimu scholar from government gives Indimuli the student the scholarship, that data is available somewhere. If Honorable Sosion wants to give Indimuli a scholarship, can query the data, and the data will tell him Indimuli is being sponsored, so you don't need to add any more sponsors. Equity is sponsoring student X. KCB does not need to sponsor the same, because there is somewhere central where this information can be found. That is very important. And I'm sure through that we will be able to reach very many needy Kenyan children who are sometimes left out because we were not able to get some of this data on time. And also, as we give out our capitation, we are cognizant of the fact that not all our schools are well populated. I am in a school that is privileged to have 2,145 students. If you gave me 1,000 per child, I'll be able to have 2 million. But there are others which have only 100 students. When you give them 1,000 per child, this school will only get 100,000. But the two schools are supposed to offer the same services. The two schools are supposed to source from the same market teaching and learning materials. But government has given capitation of 1,000 across board. We feel we must look at something that we can model almost to the equalization fund of county governments, so that schools that have very low population, can you think of a way in which they can be supported with an additional fund to be able to support them grow? That one is something we can think about as a nation and find a way forward. As I've already said, the introduction of special tariffs, it is also important to note that as we integrate our children, both those with special needs with the normal ones, we need to think more about children with special needs. I think as a nation, and this I must confess, we've not thought much about children with special needs. So we need to engage more with the associations that deal with it. As I said, we have SHAC that deals with the special needs education teachers, and those will give us more insights to it in terms of infrastructure and in terms of what kind of facilities they need. As I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, you've talked about engagement with stakeholders in terms of changing or looking and improving on our education system. We truly want to say that is the way to go. I know it is 5 years now. We will be looking again to improve on the CBC. We know the teething issues that it is there, but as you said, it is the way to go. So it is important that we engage more with the stakeholders, the teachers, the clergy, and those that offer education to ensure that as we make these changes, we are carrying everybody along so that we don't have any dissenting voices. And lastly is the empowerment of the board of management in our schools. We have board of management in our schools across the board, but we've not empowered them enough to be able to take decisions. Always the decisions are left pending, waiting for maybe the Ministry of Education to come and pronounce on those decisions they have made. Then the question is, why do we appoint them? Then we don't give them the powers to execute. It would be important for that, and especially on matters of discipline in our institutions. The discipline in our institutions of late has been going down because the boards of management have no powers of ensuring that this discipline is maintained in terms of government coming up with regulations to operationalize the Children's Act in our schools, and other regulations that put more responsibility on the child when they are in learning institutions, rather than only looking at the right of the child and not adding and what is their responsibility. I know there are quite a number of people who would like to contribute towards this. I believe at the end of it, I have my colleague there from KWANZA who would want to say a word. I know at the end, there's 2 sentences, and my colleagues, Kuria and Tim, they are also here. You will allow me, Your Excellency, after everybody has presented, they can add 1 or 2 in terms of basic education. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to me, and may God bless you.
Mwalimu, sorry. Okay. I just want to understand a bit of, because we want to have a charter finally.
Yes.
No, we want to have an agreement of that is going to be written. So, yes. I know you have, you've talked about different enrollments.
Yes.
1,000, maybe 2,000, but there's a school that has 100, maybe 200. And yet they are supposed to hire certain standard services, whether you have 1,000 or 2,000 students, yes, or whether you have 100, you will need a secretary, you will need a bazaar, you need so many of those, and sometimes it becomes very difficult when you have 100 students. I think that's what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying, yes.
So you're suggesting, for example, that we should have maybe a minimum essential package, yes, to run a school.
That is what we are saying. A minimum essential package, yes, that is standard.
That is standard.
Then anything on top will depend on the kind of population, yeah, the school has.
Okay.
But if we only go by population alone, we will always, the schools that are down there, yes, will continue to remain down there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is what is contributing to inequality in education. That's why parents are taking their kids, yes, to schools, the big schools, because they can deploy the resources they get better and get quality.
Yes.
While on the other side, we should be building more access by making sure that we grow the smaller schools.
Because if we want to increase access, the smaller schools must be grown.
Must survive.
Because they will be available,
yeah,
they'll be closer to the population.
Correct.
They'll be children will be closer home.
Yes.
And the parents will have confidence, yes, to take a child to the school closer, rather than struggling, yes, to take a child to Alliance, yes, Machakos, yes, where, yes, which will be far away, yes, so they have to spend on traveling.
Yes.
They have to spend again more because they have to pay for boarding services. But if we grow the smaller schools,
correct,
bring them up in terms of infrastructure, in terms of well-resourced and available teacher,
yes,
then the parents will build confidence.
So essentially, having a minimum package that is essential for a school to exist and to grow will improve access, because then you're making even the small schools available.
Yes.
And most of them are largely day schools, so they are cheaper.
They are cheaper.
So instead of a parent, so it's essentially bottom up.
Very true. Very true. They are cheaper, so the people will come. Very true. I totally agree with you. And that is the concept that we are having here. And that is our proposal. Grow the schools in the grassroots.
Yes.
And you may not need that child to leave that village looking for a school several kilometers away because it is well resourced.
Correct.
Yeah.
So on again the matter of infrastructure.
Yes.
At the moment, county governments, let me say, by virtue of operation of the law and the constitution, they are constrained from deploying county resources in putting up education infrastructure except in ECD.
Yes.
Would then be your suggestion that maybe we can open up, the counties, where counties feel that there is pressure from the public and the resources from national government are not adequate. We can open up the county government space for them to deploy county resources in putting up school infrastructure.
That one is true, because though the law has indicated that county governments are only dealing with ECDs and I think another sector there, but the same law allows for public participation. If the governor and his team engage in public participation and the public is telling them that school A in our area really requires extra classrooms, I think through public participation, and it's agreed, the county governments should be allowed to help in building the infrastructure. That should be a way to go, so that we are building these things together, both the county government and national government, so that nobody looks at it as a governor. I don't say that is not my responsibility. Yet, the children are local. The children belong to that county. Yeah? So if as a county government we are saying secondary school A, and allow me to use school at home, maybe Honorable Msalia would understand it better. Ivona Secondary School is a day school. And my county governor says he cannot put resources as Ivona Secondary because it belongs to the national government. 80% of the children going to Ivona Secondary School are from the locality. Yeah? The governor is the governor of that local area. So he cannot abdicate, he or she cannot abdicate some responsibility because the law has said. Let us allow public participation. The law should be flexible, yeah, to allow governors to engage the public. And if the public say, we need 2 classrooms here in this secondary school, in this primary school, then it should be done.
Okay, Mwalimu, and maybe finally, and I'm not trying to harass you, but
No.
I'm just trying to see, to understand. You are a professional, you are a practitioner, so you know better than I do. I was in a school in Wajir, in a place called Tarbaj, about 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
And I spoke to one of the teachers there, and majority of the teachers in that school were, I think I met a teacher from Bomet, and I met a teacher from Muranga. And it is contributing to this constant problem of schools in, especially northern Kenya. As a teacher,
Yes.
what would you recommend? Because while I was at the Ministry of Education, we tried to provide affirmative action in teacher training for people coming from localities in northern Kenya, because it is contributing to the low standards of education in northern Kenya, that most of the teachers are from very far. So whenever there is a challenge, the teachers go away and the students are stranded. What would you, as a practitioner and as a leader of the teaching fraternity, suggest to policymakers like us in terms of getting the communities there to appreciate that they need to make a contribution of people who can be trained so that they can, understanding the locality and the challenges thereof, they can better deliver education to children in those localities? What are your thoughts? What do you think?
Every child in Kenya requires a trained teacher across. I may not really advocate for what we call the affirmative action, so that the teachers in those areas maybe are taken in at lower entry point, for example. Because eventually this teacher will need to teach elsewhere in Kenya. We may not just go and find them there. My view would be government must ensure security for all Kenyans and for the people up there. Secondly, we can enumerate this teacher slightly better. I'm borrowing a leaf from some times back when we didn't have enough teachers of science in the country. What did government do? It ensured that when you are graduating and get into the teaching profession and you are a science teacher, your salary was a few shillings higher than one who was not a science teacher. Could we say, therefore, in these areas that are challenging and a teacher A is posted there, can we add something on top of his salary? Because in Northeastern, there are teachers from elsewhere, but they are in private schools. Why are they there? And in public schools, the teachers have run away. They are there because they are better paid. So we do the same here. Yeah.
So, precisely, that was, I was asking that question. So the affirmative action is in paying a little bit more.
A little bit more.
So that we can retain teachers in those areas. But the primary thing is we must provide security.
We must provide security for the teachers to be there.
Let me ask differently, because I have had engagement with leaders from northern Kenya, and we try to persuade them that the community in northern Kenya, mostly, they are not keen on the teaching profession.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on how we can encourage local communities to understand that being available to teach is a noble profession, and how do a mechanism for us to encourage them? Maybe the one you have suggested on maybe paying them better would work.
Or even we can look at for children in that area. The government can get out of its way and say, children from Northeastern who have qualified and are going to take education to become teachers, they will go into training fully funded by government. Yeah. So that they don't have to pay anything. It's an incentive to them because they'll feel, okay, now I'll go to the university, study, and I'll not pay. and I'll not be charged even later to pay. Let it be like a full government-sponsored scholarship for them. But what I'm not agreeing is we can't lower the grades for them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I fully support what you're saying, Mwalimu, that
Yes.
lowering the grades is not an option.
Yes.
What we can do, and maybe I can speak of my own experience. I went to Lamu and Tana River, and I've had to sponsor personally 100 teachers to go to college, so that they can go back and be teachers in
the same area,
in the locality, because they understand the locality is better. So maybe we can open up opportunities for people who want to train as teachers from those areas, and look at a mechanism where we can provide bursaries so that we can encourage more people from those localities with challenges to turn up for teaching.
Yeah.
And then we can add what you have suggested, that we can also provide maybe what you call hardship allowance, so that they can teach in those difficult areas.
Yes, I agree with
Thank you very much for your thoughts. Maybe my good brother here.
Mwalimu,
Yes.
My name is Moses Wetangula. I went to a day school,
Yes.
from Form 1 to 4, and I agree with you that there is no difficulty at all in people succeeding through day schools. Now, some 1-2 years ago, or probably 3, there was a big shakeup of teachers being uprooted from one region to another, from one county to another, in a process called delocalization. And the complaints I've been having is that this has split families, has created a lot of difficulties, especially for elderly teachers. A man of your age is uprooted from home and taken 200, 300 kilometers away without a family. You now have to live a bachelor life and so on. How has this impacted on the production from these teachers? And going forward, what would be your thoughts in how to deal with this situation? I once visited TSC, and I was told by senior officials there that they don't want to have teacher couples teaching in the same schools. Yet when we were going to school, and those days were missionary days, you found there was a white man and his wife in the same school, teaching very well without any issues and making us pass exams. What do you think we need as KWANZA government to address this issue so that teachers are not only well remunerated, but they also are comfortable in their family lives and therefore more productive?
Thank you. That's a very good question, and it's something that has been very emotive. Number one, a teacher is a national resource. A trained teacher is a national resource. I believe that the right point of we wouldn't like to use the word delocalization. The right time to nationalize this teacher is at the point of employment. Because the teacher is younger, the teacher is energetic, yeah, and is ready to venture into various areas. I take myself as an example. When I graduated in 1986, my first posting was on Rusinga Island. Rusinga Island. I was a Luya there. There was no other Luya. There were Luos. So I was interacting with the parents who could not even talk Kiswahili. When I became a deputy, I was forced to learn Luo, yeah, so that I'm able to communicate. But today, when I was moved to Machakos, I've now taken 4 years. I cannot communicate in Kikamba because of my age. You see? So the right point of place of nationalization is at the point of employment. The teacher will interact with the local community there. The teachers are energetic. They will venture. They will end up marrying, and it will also help in integration. So that as the teachers become older, they are moved closer home. That is what I would feel. So that when you reach 55 years, the employer should now start thinking of taking you closer home so that you can take a rest instead of traveling very long distances. That is why, as you said, in some cases, those who are delocalized were demoralized, and it contributed to a little bit of, it affected their performance. It is only those who maybe had an experience of working away from home that did not feel it much, though they felt it. So if we nationalize the teacher at the point of employment, it would be much better than having allowed the teacher to work at home, grown there. So, then, of course, when it comes to issues of management of our institutions, then again, we need to think, because the issues of management, a good manager would be available for the country. Yeah? So maybe at management point, and we need to look at the age at that point of management. If you are moving somebody at the age of 55, though a good manager, that becomes a challenge psychologically, spiritually to him. But if this manager is around 40 years, you can easily move. So 2 points, at the point of employment, at level of management, but at management, we look at the age. Yes.
So Mwalimu, I think that's a very important, and as you've said yourself, it's a rather controversial issue. What do you think? And first, I think you have agreed that teachers or teachers are a national resource.
Yes.
So the nationalization agenda is okay.
It's okay.
But at what point is now what we need to work out?
Yes.
Right? Instead of making it punitive, can we turn it around and say a teacher who is willing to serve away from their county or their home gets an allowance for participating in the nationalization agenda?
That is very true.
Maybe that way we can achieve the intention of creating a national teaching
body. We
force,
have teachers without borders.
Without borders,
Yeah.
Without necessarily making it look like punitive.
Punitive, yeah.
Yeah.
In all fairness, it shouldn't appear that when you are moving this teacher, it shouldn't appear as a punishment.
Yes.
It should be that your services are actually now needed here. And if you are ready to take it up.
And it should be voluntary, number one,
yes.
and it should have some incentives.
It should have incentives.
Yeah, that I am willing to participate in the nationalization agenda.
Yes.
And I'm willing to teach away from home.
That is true.
Maybe we give you a special consideration.
That is true. Because if you look at the UNESCO Charter, they look at teaching and a teacher for the locality, you know, because the teacher should understand the culture, should understand the morals of the area, you know. So you find when he's in his own local or her own local community, they will be comfortable. So if they have to move into a new community to start interacting with a different culture, then we should incentivize that one. I agree with you.
So, at Kenya KWANZA, we,
Mike.
This one is working? Okay, thank you. So your suggestion is that we should explore how we can carry out this nationalization agenda first at employment level. Secondly, we try and make it voluntary. And thirdly, we incentivize the process so that people who feel they want to participate in this national agenda, which is a very positive agenda, they can then maybe get an incentive, maybe a small stipend or an allowance, so that we can promote the same value without necessarily making it look like it is punitive. Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah.
On again. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Ah, okay. Ndimuli. Yeah, yes, we come from the same village. Thank you for that.
Yes.
One, slightly deviating. As the head of the Heads Association and a practitioner in matters of education, there is something that is interesting, and we need to just get some clarification. What is the level of the crisis of drug abuse in... Hello? Okay.
Yeah.
What is the level of the drug abuse crisis? And two, what measures have educational institutions been putting in place to deal with the drug menace? And three, we have seen in the political arena, there are some people who are now masquerading on the basis that they will allow a certain form of drug to become commercialized. You know, this is a very serious matter, I believe, but as a practitioner,
Yes.
what would you want to say about this, and what are the dangers that we are looking at?
Thank you very much. First of all, as I said, we have boards of management that need to be empowered to perform their mandate. One of their mandate is ensuring a disciplined institution. Today, our biggest challenge in schools, and especially secondary schools, is the issue of drug and drug abuse. And the biggest drug that is abused is cannabis, bangi. The challenge is we are not able sometimes to prove, because sometimes when you catch them even smoking and they throw it maybe in a pit latrine, you have no evidence. And the law will always ask for evidence. And that is why, as Kenya Secondary School Heads Association, we started a debate that we want random drug testing in schools. I know people don't like it, but we will need to take that bold step. Because if we can subject our sportsmen and women to random drug testing, when they are off events or within season, they are tested. And if they are found culpable, they are maybe banned for 4 years, isn't it, or more. Why are we finding it very difficult to look at our laws and change and make it mandatory? Because that is the only evidence we can have to sanction a child. But the issue of drugs is real. But we have no laws that are helping educational institutions to fight the menace. The only thing we will have is we suspend. When we suspend, they will come back. If you want to isolate them from the school, the process is laborious. And the Education Act goes ahead and empowers the minister to ensure that all school-going children remain in school. So even when you recommend to the minister that this child needs to be isolated and taken to maybe another institution, the minister will write back and say, you readmit. Because the law also does not allow him to isolate children. What are we proposing? We have been saying we must reintroduce and build the capacity of our Boston institutions, where this way children in drugs, children whose discipline is just wayward, can be taken to those institutions, where they can continue learning and measures of discipline are undertaken, so that we leave the regular schools to manage the regular students. Those that have already proved to be unmanageable, then the teachers have no capacity to manage them. Let them go to an institution where we have people trained to manage such students and at the same time allowed to continue. So when we recommend as principle, isolate this one from this community, we expect government to now pick that student and take that student to an institution that can now manage him better or her, but allow the students to continue learning. So that is the challenge we have been having, but it is a big problem. I know one parent asked me just recently when we were dealing with the case, and he asked me, now Mwalimu, when somebody takes over and this is going to be grown, what will you do when they smoke? I said, I'll wait until he takes over and allows people to smoke. But if he does not allow people to smoke, we shall still punish those who will smoke, because he will only have a policy of growing, but not smoking. Thank you.
Mwalimu, sorry we've taken too long with you.
No, it's okay.
When we were growing up, there was always the disciplinary measures taken by teachers.
Yes.
The cane.
Yes.
The Children's Act outlawed the cane.
Yes.
And I keep receiving parents when I'm at home who say, Mheshimiwa, my child is looking like he's going astray. I want you to help me take this child to school for the teachers to punish him for me. And he's still looking for the cane. What are your thoughts about the levels of disciplinary measures that need to be taken? Because some of these children, when they start engaging in bad habits, testing ganja or bangi as it's called, when you arrest this situation through some form of punishment, they change. Because you can't just kick out every child who smoked bang to go to an institution when you could even have corrected them. What are your thoughts about levels of disciplining children in schools?
Thank you. The issue of discipline, I think, is very challenging today. The cane, as it was It was there when we went to school. But you'll agree with me also, it was sometimes wrongly used. And it ended up injuring students. And that is why it became a national conversation, international, until it was outlawed. But when the Children's Act was introduced, we failed to do one thing. We did not develop regulations to operationalize that Children's Act in learning institutions. And since there were no regulations, the teacher was left vulnerable to the act. So that even if I slapped the child or I quarreled the child, they are all classified as corporal punishment. So that has made it very difficult. And parents and the children know that I cannot be abused, I cannot be slapped, I cannot be caned. And when I'm caned, I raise it up with the Teacher Service Commission. Teacher Service Commission follows the law, you will be interdicted. So we need to first operationalize that. Secondly, the guidance and counseling issues, we are always told guide and counsel. But guidance and counseling is not one-off. It is a process. That process takes time. The teacher in charge of that department also has another teaching load. So provision of guidance and counseling services in our institutions are not to the level that is required. Because those given that responsibility have the other teaching subjects which they need to attend to. So they spare very little time, maybe at games time. That is not enough. Yeah? So it would be important that as we strengthen this guidance and counseling, maybe government can employ professionally trained guidance and counseling people attached to the school and let the teachers do their responsibility to teach the subjects they trained in. But we have professional counselors within the institution.
Thank you very much, Mwalimu, for your wealth of
Thank you.
Ideas. I think the takeaway we get from you on that particular subject is maybe we need to look at the Children's Act regulations,
yes,
and to see how it can be customized in schools, yes, to help the teachers assist the students to, especially on matters of discipline, in a manner that the parents and the teachers are involved, so that we can have discipline in schools.
Good.
Without necessarily bringing back all the cane issues and all the other things. I think there could be other mechanisms that can be put in the regulations that can assist schools to run better, especially on matters of discipline to students.
True.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you also. It's an honor to engage with Your Excellency and with the party leaders. You know, sometimes we can wave from far, but this kind of... thank you very much, and may God bless you.
All right, thank you. I forgot to tell you earlier that we have been given 4 minutes per speaker. So kindly, we can reduce the time of speakers, but we cannot reduce the conversation in between you and His Excellency. So kindly take just 4 minutes per every speaker. So the next speaker on stage is State of Debate and Recommendation, Professor Engineer Mutahi Some. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Afternoon. Your Excellency, I feel like saying number 5. guests. I want to take over from the presenter, because when the students leave basic education, this is where I'm going to talk about TVET, university, and research. The higher education sector is the main force that drives knowledge and skill development. It does research and it does innovations. The sector has challenges that have made it not meet that full potential. It continues to grapple with inadequate number of institutions to absorb the increasing student numbers that are coming out from. Looking into the future, we have the opportunity with KWANZA government to do the following: to have a vocational training center in each of our 1,450 wards. Currently, 1,200 are being built. So we need to put up the remaining 250. This will absorb the people coming from the basics. Secondly, we are looking at a technical and vocational training college in every constituency, sub-county. Right now, we are short by 52. If those are done, 290 will be in place. It is our desire to put up a national polytechnic in each county. And we think that the 12 that are there is a bigger job to do, because after the vocational training centers and the technical and vocational colleges, these are the institutions that will take them to higher levels. The Universities Act 2012 provided that government under Section 26 should have a university in each of the counties. Right now, we have 31 public universities in Kenya, which means we have a number of counties that do not have universities, and here we are asking the KWANZA administration to look at how to make this right. But in doing that, we would like to see universities focus within counties. For example, in the coast, we should have courses that are focusing on blue economy, for example. In Turkana, for example, we should have focus on mining and other extractives that should be able to take capital of the area they are in. In the TVET zone, the Universities Act provides for technical universities. And it is indeed the wish, or was the wish of the country, to have a technical university in each of the 8 regions that were provinces before. We currently have 3. So we have an area that we need to put up 3 more. Technical universities will serve as regional incubation and innovation centers, and will really capitalize on the productions of TVET. We also have been talking, and this has been an embarrassment on Kenya, of an open university. It's almost 20-something years when the first draft was done and so forth. Countries like Tanzania and other places have come and put up their open universities. We really need to do the National Open Universities of Kenya. It will make it cheap, and it will allow more people beyond the age to continue doing this. We need to link what is happening in TVET with formal education through various credit transfer frameworks. These are areas that needs to be worked on, and this would be very good. We envisage students from basic education, standard 1, to take whatever time they are taking, and in the secondary school to take whatever time they will be taking. This will be under discussion, but we expect at the age of 17, 18 that they are finishing school. If they finish at 17, they finish at 18, we really would like to see a national internship program for all the students that are graduating in school level, and even that are graduating from TVET and university station, This would be collaborated with, should be collaborated with industry. And we think that a team should be put up, Your Excellency, comprising of public and private sector players to drive this national internship program. We would like also to put in place legislation, policy, and budgetary to resource mobilize that will address the chronic underfunding of public institutions, particularly at the TVET and university level. We would like to transfer the governance of university, including hiring of the management level staff from the currently public service commission through amending the act, and place these together with the financial management and accountability at the university governing councils, because this is what is done the world over. We would like to restructure. We would like to propose a restructure of the higher education loans board to look like other loans board internationally that offer interest-free loans to the students so that the take-up is high and there will be more students doing this. And we would like to ask your government, Your Excellency, that we look at a strategy of courses that would deliver a bottom-up economy in promoting STEM programs, agriculture, and other strategic courses that would come with this. This would be possible if you look at an increase towards research and development of institutions that is currently at 0.8%. And according to the Science, Technology, Innovations Act of 2013, this should be at 2% of GDP. Only 2 countries in Africa do it at 2%, South Africa and Egypt. Others are doing it at 1%. In order to meet or to look like the education that takes place in those countries, we need to up this fund. We would also like to see a restructuring and strengthening of the National Employment Authority to act as a national database to give data on available skills, to facilitate industry, to engage with players and explore possible export of skilled manpower in the human capital. A lot of us who've been through the Middle East will see a Filipino lady who has a different passport that says she is house help, because they are the majority doing that. The Kenyan house helps don't have any recognition. This would be the body that would do that recognition. We'd also like to see the establishment of National Skills Council to work with the National Employment Authority in identifying available skills labor for both local and foreign assignments. I'm almost there. We'd like to establish linkage between higher education and policy formulation, because sometimes doing a research involves looking around you for what works and what doesn't work. We'd like to facilitate universities to institute internationalization program. We are targeting at 10% of student enrollment. Countries around us are not panacea like us. Somalia, Djibouti, Ethiopia now, South Sudan, Uganda, Tanzania. We can be a center for attracting scholars. South Africa is losing for many reasons. Let's be that reason that we can attract. Lastly, domestic teacher recruitment and deployment at all entry levels as per the UNESCO teacher deployment practice, which treats education as a cultural process conducted within a people's culture and linguistics. I think my predecessor just said this is equally applicable in the universities. As we spread universities in every county, we will come across the challenge for staff and staff deployment. Ladies and gentlemen, we're told 5 minutes. As an engineer, I think I've done not too bad. I conclude. Your Excellency, I had just two small points. When I was made a CEO very earlier days, something called performance contract, and I see my friend Brown Ondeko there, his corporation was among the first 15 pioneering institutions. It ran for a very good 10 years, and it actually improved performance. We want to note that it has not been functioning. Please restart it. Performance contracting of public institutions the world over is something that improves things. And lastly, from an economics point of view, a friend of mine in the university says, the small people are taxed a minimum tax, even when they don't break even. A big corporation is left untaxed when they don't break even. It should apply to the small people as well. Thank you.
Great, Professor. Thank you very much, Professor, for your insights. I appreciate that you have been a CEO of our university. You have been a CEO of our Commission on University Education. And your insights here already speak to that kind of experience. Let me just ask maybe one or two questions. When you say that we have, first I agree totally that we need to complete the vocational training institutions in our wards by an extra 250, and in our constituencies nationally by the other 52. In fact, we have driven this program over the last 10 years. I think we have built close to 150 new technical training colleges around. We've slowed down the last 3 years, but I think this is an exercise that we can actually conclude within 2 years. We can have all the 52 TVET institutions in our constituencies. My question is funding, on the issue of funding. We have, the statistics I have is that using the current funding structure, our students in university, for example, they only get about 55%, both from the capitation, from the University Funding Board, and the Higher Education Loans Board. 45% is unfunded. 45% is unfunded. And that's largely what is causing the crisis in our universities. Many of our universities are actually in a funding crisis. I got a letter last week from being an alumni of Nairobi University, inviting me for a fundraising. It speaks to the kind of crisis we have in our universities. And as a result of that crisis, of course, universities are finding ways of how to complete the course, minus certain things, and it leads to, cutting corners. And finally, we end up with not very complete students. Now, what are your thoughts? What is your experience having been a manager of a university? We have tried many, many ways. We now have Universities Funding Board, TVET Funding Board, Higher Education Loans Board. What is the experience in other countries? What would your experience tell us? So as Kenya KWANZA, what would you recommend that we do?
Thank you for the question. I think this question was like 12 years ago. I was privileged to chair the task force that looked at higher education. And we talked to 38 education attaches in Kenya who are education attaches. They came, we discussed with them, and we were keen to know how are they funding their universities specifically, and also would follow for TVET, because TVET structure was not proper at that time. And we discovered something called unit cost. What is a unit cost of a program in 1 year? Let's take medicine, for example. We scanned, in the US, 1 year medical student is paying the equivalent of 1.7 million Kenya shillings. Right now, a private student enrolled in our medical program at Nairobi or Moi is paying close to 700,000 shillings, 0.7 million. So the unit cost in the US versus the unit cost in Kenya, because we try to charge unit cost to private students, there is a difference of 1 million shillings. So we're getting 1 million shilling less doctor. We're not exposing them to real full, because the funds are not available to go into higher level machinery, higher level training, and so forth. Differentiated unit cost means different unit costs for different programs. So that engineering in Kenya is about 500,000 shillings per year, and so forth. The education is about 275. We came up with a program of about 26 cluster courses that we used in the whole joint admissions board, but now it is at COOPS. Your government should look at this. It's in the law. Differentiated unit cost should be the basis for charging training in the university. Who pays that money should be partly the government, the student, the parents, some scholarships, whatever it comes. But there is a counter to this, and this is what I believe people were not ready to do it. Discipline, differentiated remuneration. The salary we pay for teaching should follow the discipline. We've not implemented that. We pay every professor the same salary, whether you go to class or not. If you go to the US, professors are scampering to get a course to teach, because they're paid on the discipline. They are remunerated on the disciplines they do. So if I put in 10 hours a day in the US, I'll earn 10 times the guy who is putting in 1 hour. This is the painful part. And I think we have to come to a common area to do it. The second area is to do a sieve for those who are not able to pay. So we do this by scholarly. We give scholarship for the best. You know, if we look at the performance in schools, and we really look at government supporting, the government fund can be structured so that it pays for the best. And also the ones that are unable to do it. There's a lot of happenings the world over on how university is funded and how university is improved. And I think we also need, and we saw this in the way we were looking at, we have surplus students in certain courses that are not going for employment. For once, and I know the teachers have just spoken, we are training almost 7 times the teachers we need. TSC right now, I don't know, they're employing, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, because we're not matching the demand to the supply. This is an area we need. We also have areas that we really are in demand, but there isn't funds to go into it. So there's a lot of balancing to be done, but we must do it. That 2% of GDP was intended in the task force that I chaired, that it be 3-way. 1, for research, which would go to the research institutions like Curry, Cambridge. 2, for research training, which is what South Africa are doing. All their postgraduate students come from, scholarships come from that research fund. And the 3rd one, innovations. Innovations are in the domain of TVET. So 1/3 goes to TVET, 1/3 goes to universities, 1/3 goes to research institutions.
Okay. Professor, I like the point you made about differentiated unit cost. That's actually the basis upon which we are sharing the current basket. Unfortunately, for a course like the one you mentioned, medicine, which is supposed to cost 700, we are providing something like 270,000. So there is a whole another almost 300,000 that is not funded. And so the university is not even spending, forget about the 1.7. Even on the 700, they are not even spending that 700. They are forced to spend something like 350, which is almost half, to train these students. Do you have any thoughts in maybe looking at exactly what you have said so that we can have a central funding mechanism that looks at what is the requirement, how many doctors do we fund, how many people in this discipline do we fund? And if you want to go into a discipline that we do not need immediately, then you will have to either fund it yourself or it is funded at a lower level. Do you think there is an option of us merging university funding board, Tibet funding board, and help, and making it a body that can fund higher education so that it can carry on board some of the issues you have raised, so that they can fund differently different courses on the basis of how expensive it is, and secondly, we don't fund courses that we already have excess personnel in those courses, in those areas, and therefore we are funding people who may not necessarily get any jobs for that moment because we already have too many people in that space. Do you think that's an option?
Your Excellency, what you are saying has two solutions to it. The first solution is, how are we teaching our medical students at 350 instead of 700? The training in the US, sorry, I keep moving away. The training in the US is one member of a medical team teaching 4 students. That's how that 1.7 million is actually spent. Here we do the maths in reverse. We get the teacher to teach 12 students. So for the same cost of 3 times, we increase the numbers of students. And of course, we don't get the same product. That's really the problem. And that's academic. The academicians must be able to do this. But coming to what I said before, point number 15, we need to restructure the National Employment Authority so that they are the ones who say, how many teachers do we need in the next 10 years, year 1, year 2 to year 10? And then the universities can be told, this is the funding we'll give you for teacher training. Right now, yeah, the government is giving us in the university more money for the students of education, business, and others, whereas if we actually projected the needs of these people, will be good. We also say establish a national skills council, because there are new skills that are not even covered and they are so critical. And so we are losing out. We are always trying to catch up with those countries who are predicting what are the new skills and funding new skills. But having part of the government saying, who do we want in our skills as a database? Who have we trained? Is the way forward.
Okay, I think you have you've persuaded me on the issue of a national skills council. But where does that sit with the Kenya Qualifications Authority? Isn't that can we improve the Kenya National Qualifications Authority to also give us that service, or do we need an entirely new body?
The Skills Council used to be a ministry for a long time. The Ministry of Manpower, Ministry of, it kept changing names. Because the National Qualifications Authorities are parastatal, it cannot say what ministries are having in terms of their manpowers and everything. It has to be domesticated in a ministry, which can give direction to all employers to say who they have and what do they need next year, 5 years. So somebody has to be doing that continuously. The National Skills Council will be domesticated in that ministry to share the information and to go all those things. This is the practice in a lot of countries, particularly in South Africa. They have that process through a ministry, and they liaise very closely to the Ministry of Education. Manpower training is the end of the training, it's the end of the schools, the end of the university. We earn them to the manpower. So the Manpower Training Ministry must be able to say that.
Those different levels at this point in time. Two, if you can maybe dovetail the higher education and also the basic in this context, just very quickly.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. I'm a former student of Strathmore when it was the A-level class, and I followed Strathmore as a university. Strathmore has 12 programs successfully running and so on. In fact, in some programs, like their law programs, they cannot take certain number, and the demand is like 3-4 times. University of Nairobi, on the other side, has 290 programs. Okay, so, and they need to provide for each of these 290 in a very similar way as Strathmore is offering for 12 programs. So there's a lot of rationalization that needs to be done. But that's not my point. My point is PPP. If you look at the program Strathmore has, they've just started a program now on intellectual property, and IBM is coming as a partner. They're meeting almost 70% of the course and so forth. It is possible, if you're doing something good, to attract a partner to come in and work with you. And we have some public universities that are actually successful in attracting a partner to engage in the program. PPP is about outcomes. The student you produce will go and create funds, create resource for that institution that is helping the institution. That's what needs to be looked into, and that would work out. If I look at Western Province, forgive me, I'm old enough to say a province, sugar industry. What happened to sugar industry and education? So we need to incentivize from the university level to TVET institutions and so forth. We work in what the industry is working. That's how PPP comes in.
Professor, I think you have spoken, if I may, authoritatively on some of the issues, and I think it will help us in crafting the charter that will help us shape the education, especially higher education. Maybe just by way of conclusion, when you speak to the subject of open university, we are largely thinking about access, is it? Because it's largely virtual. It's rather cheaper to run an open university. As Minister for Higher Education, I almost actually launched the open university. We had done everything. There was remaining very few steps, and we were going to ask President Kibaki to launch it. Unfortunately, we missed that opportunity. And as you say, I think it is 20 years plus in discussion about open university. In fact, in many countries, the largest university is always the open university. I'm told, for example, in India, it has close to 1 million students. In South Africa, maybe 300-400 students. So, and these